A man has died after a tree fell on his car in Gloucestershire during Storm Henk. Police were called around 3:15 yesterday with reports of a large fallen tree outside Cirencester during strong winds. Emergency services, including an air ambulance, attended, but despite the efforts of those at the scene, the man in his 50s died. Well, these are the latest pictures from Loughborough, where you can see the extent of the flooding that's affecting that area. As you can see, not just roads and homes in the town centre that are affected. Currently, around 10,000 houses are without power due to flooding, fallen trees and scaffolding. Hundreds of flood warnings are still in place following the storm. Well, let's take a quick look at those in more detail. The Environment Agency's flood warnings and alerts are currently in place. 294 flood warnings, a further 313 flood alerts active across England. Meanwhile, in Wales, a severe flood warning means there's a danger to life and has been issued for the River Rytech at Tenby. There are further 8 flood warnings and 31 flood alerts. In Scotland, there's 1 flood warning currently in place. Well, in a moment, we'll talk to our correspondent Becky Cottrell, who's live in Loughborough for us. But first, Skyzan Whitehead joins us from outside Cirencester, where that man died after a tree fell on his car. And Dan, it seemed like the weather yesterday, the gusts just seemed to come ever so quickly, didn't they?
Yeah, very quickly. And this is a very main road in Gloucestershire between Cirencester and Tetbury, the A433. It's a very straight road. Visibility would have been relatively OK. And obviously, this driver was passing just the wrong moment here. I'll step out of the way because you can see behind me that there are collision investigation officers at the scene here. The white car on the left, we don't believe is the vehicle that the man in his 50s who died was driving. In fact, we've seen from drone footage that the other side of that tree is what looks like a grey vehicle that is underneath the tree, really, half and half. And that is, sadly, we believe the vehicle involved in the fatal incident yesterday. It's been nearly 24 hours now, as you say, 3:15 yesterday, and this major road in Gloucestershire still remains closed. As I say, collision investigation officers are meticulously taking photographs of the scene at the moment. We're told that in the next hour or so they will now then start to take apart the tree, which is a substantial tree that's crossed this major A road here. It resulted in emergency services, as you say, attending at 3:15 yesterday. That included the air ambulance, and despite the efforts of those teams, that man in his 50s died. We know that he is from the Bath area, so he wasn't immediately local to Cirencester. His family, of course, have been informed. This isn't the only tree which we've heard of that has fallen. There are others in the area, and of course that picture that we're seeing elsewhere in the country with hundreds of flood warnings still in place, some of those severe, just shows how dangerous it can be for motorists. But the situation on the scene here is that police remain here as the work continues to remove this tree.
OK, Dan, thanks very much. Well, let's cross to Becky Cottrell, who's up there in Loughborough, where the flooding is. And Becky, really extraordinary flooding. There was already a lot of water on the ground yesterday before the storm, wasn't there? How much worse did it get?
Well, I think it's safe to say that this street behind me, Belton Road, is perhaps one of the worst affected when it comes to flooding in the country. Further down the road is where all of the houses are. I mean, you can see behind me, the road is closed off because there is a lot of water on it. But by the houses, I mean, it has gushed into their living rooms, people walking around with water coming up to their knees. We spoke to one family who owned 2 properties on the street next door to each other. One has just been refurbished, and both of them are completely flooded. Electrics, carpets, furnishings, wallpaper, everything has been damaged. They don't have insurance. They do not know what they are going to do. Now, this flooding here has really taken the residents by surprise. They say that they've never seen anything like this. I've spoke to locals who've said that in 20, 40 years of living here, this part of Loughborough has never been flooded in this way. Now, many of them think it could be to do with the drains not having been properly cleared and the water having nowhere to go. Now, it's bad here, but it's just one example of what other houses will be experiencing across the country. But it has just started raining again here. This is the last thing these people need.
OK, Becky, thanks so much.